On this week's NESN Patriots podcast, we will discuss the Patriots' win over the Philadelphia Eagles. We will look forward to their Week 12 game against the Dallas Cowboys, and we will discuss grumpy Tom Brady. Hello and welcome to the NESN Patriots podcast. I am Doug Codd, joined as always by Zach Cox. Zach, how are you doing?
I'm doing much better than Tom Brady was when we spoke with him on Sunday night. And that's a segue for you.
Yeah, it sure is. Tom Brady was not very happy after the Patriots bettered their record to 9-1 against the Philadelphia Eagles. It was very surprising to me that he seemed so I guess grumpy or aggravated or emotional,
forlorn,
and despondent after the Patriots did beat the Eagles 17-10. It wasn't the prettiest game on offense for the Patriots. They really struggled to get into the red zone, but I still certainly was not expecting to walk into the press conference room at Lincoln Financial Field and find Tom Brady in that state of affairs. So I don't really want to speculate on why Tom Brady was acting like that, but it was certainly weird to me.
Yeah, and I feel like we are able to speculate a little bit more now that he's spoken to WEI the next day, spoke to Jim Gray Monday night, and basically made it clear that it wasn't, because we didn't know in the moment, maybe he's dealing with some off-the-field stuff. I don't know what's going on. And he basically made it clear that he is frustrated with this Patriots offense and kind of ran down a few of the issues specifically that he was kind of unhappy about, especially sort of he mentioned the missed opportunities was something that he brought up, where the Patriots kind of were set up in some pretty good positions by their defense and special teams and weren't able to take advantage of it. But it was alarming to see, or I don't know if alarming is too strong of a word, but it was certainly surprising to see Tom Brady act like this after a win. We don't even really see Tom Brady act like this after losses.
Right.
It's rare to see him be that down in a press conference or any sort of media setting, especially when everybody else that talked that day, for the most part, seemed pretty upbeat. I mean, you watch the...
Bill Belichick said that everyone had fun that day.
Yeah, you even go back and watch the kind of locker room video that the Patriots release after each game, and Bill Belichick smiling ear to ear. He loves this kind of stuff. He loves that kind of grinded out defensive football game. Tom Brady apparently does not. He's really unhappy with the state of this Patriots offense, and on one hand, you can see where he's coming from because the Patriots offense hasn't been that good this season, but on the other hand, his team's 9-1. The Patriots are still third in the league in points scored, and his team is 9-1. I mean, it's weird for Tom Brady, who for years we've been told is all about the team, and everything that he's done throughout his career has been sort of team first. The team is 9-1. I mean, it's weird to see the face of the team be so unhappy when the team is, again, 9-1.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand being a little bit upset with the offensive struggles, and maybe over the course of the week that starts to boil up a little bit. But the fact that it happened right after they won was just so bizarre to me, because usually, I mean, the Eagles, I thought, were a pretty good team, and to come out against a pretty good team and beat them on the road felt like that would be, something to celebrate after the game. But, I mean, it definitely wasn't. It was definitely unlike anything that I've ever seen before from the Patriots quarterback. And I was only talking to defensive players in the Patriots locker room. I talked to Stephon Gilmore and Danny Shelton. I was in on Jason McCourty and some of these other guys. I saw Devin McCourty. So I didn't talk to any offensive players. I know that you did. What was the mood of the offensive players in the locker room after that game?
It was a little tough to judge because I talked to Nikhil Harry, who kind of was coming out of his first game and basically said the exact same thing 5 times in a row, as you would expect from a rookie who isn't really probably a little hesitant talking to the media. Basically said, yeah, it was good to get out there, and there are a lot of things I need to work on. Julian Edelman, who has been kind of surly for a little while with the media, was kind of his traditional self there. And then Sony Michel is one of the players that we've learned doesn't like to be particularly verbose when he speaks with the media. So not the greatest sample size from those players. But just the general mood amongst the team. Maybe you're right that it comes more from defensive players and Bill Belichick, who's a defensive coach. But it did seem to be, again, seemed out of place, Tom Brady's kind of his mindset after this game.
The Patriots, as we mentioned, did beat the Eagles 17-10 in that game. There were not a ton of excellent offensive performances in that game. Julian Edelman threw a touchdown, but he also dropped a would-be touchdown. Tight end Ben Watson might have been the Patriots' best offensive player in that game. Maybe, one of the offensive linemen, but Watson was probably the one who stood out the most. He had 3 catches for 52 yards, including a really impressive 19-yard grab that he kind of had to lay out for in contested coverage. Also had a pretty good, I think it was like a 22-yard catch and run that he also had. I mean, for a 38-year-old, he's looking spry right now, and he's far and away the Patriots' best tight end on the roster right now. But just focusing on the offensive side of the ball, what sort of stood out to you in that game against the Eagles?
Yeah, not much, as you just mentioned. I mean, Julian Edelman and Philip Dorsett teamed up for kind of the most memorable moment in their double pass, but as you mentioned, Julian Edelman also dropped a touchdown in this game, only caught 50% of his targets, and then Philip Dorsett was knocked out of the game on that same play that he did catch the touchdown. And then didn't see much from Mohamed Sanu, who now is not at practice today, so maybe he's still dealing with the after effects of this, what appeared to be an ankle injury that he suffered on a punt return during this game. He got his ankle taped up, ended up coming back in the game, only played about 55% of the snaps, so that's going to be something that we're going to be monitoring moving forward. After looking at the tape, I thought Shaq Mason played one of his better games of the season. He seems to be kind of, I don't know if I would say rounding into form from his previous level, but he's definitely played. If you look at his PFF grades, they've been significantly better these last couple weeks than he had earlier in the season, which is definitely a major boost for the Patriots' offensive line. On the other hand, Marshall Newhouse did not have a particularly good game, and I do not expect him to be in the starting lineup for the Patriots unless they suffer some sort of other injury moving forward, because Isaiah Wynn now back on the 53-man roster. Bill Belichick was coy when asked if he'll be taking over as the left tackle, but it's obvious that he's going to be taking over as the left tackle because he should be, from what limited kind of sample size we've seen from him so far, he should be a significant upgrade at that spot over Newhouse.
For sure, and I think that, I don't think that Isaiah Wynn's going to be an offensive savior or anything for the Patriots, but while we're talking about him, I do think that, he will certainly help. He'll help in the pass rush department. He'll help possibly free up some lanes in the rushing game. I think that, getting your left tackle back is certainly significant, especially when the offense is struggling to the degree that the Patriots are right now. So I do expect that to be a pretty sizable boost. I'm not sure if it'll make Tom Brady happy and smile, but I do think that that will certainly help. One other thing you mentioned, Nikhil Harry made his NFL debut. He had 3 catches for 19 yards, something like that?
It was 3 catches on 4 targets for 18 yards. 18
yards. Not a lot there, but he was used pretty heavily after Philip Dorsett suffered a head injury in the beginning of the third quarter. So Sanu definitely, Harry certainly wound up playing more snaps than a lot of people would have expected him to play. There weren't any wow moments. One of his catches, it kind of turned into a scramble drill after Tom Brady evaded some pass rush. Nikhil Harry had ran a curl on that play, and he just sort of sat in place. And I think that Tom Brady might have preferred in that moment, if it had been more of a veteran receiver, for Harry to start moving a little bit upfield because there was really no one behind him. But Brady just sort of dumped it off to him for a 3-yard gain. And I'd say that alone, the fact that Brady was willing to throw to him in situations where Harry might not have been the first read, is a fairly significant sign. But we'll just have to see moving forward how big of a role that Harry has. But, with Dorsett with the head injury, and now Mohamed Sanu missing practice, we could see a pretty decent role for Nikhil Harry here in Week 12 against the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I think Nikhil Harry played a lot more in this game than even the Patriots were expecting.
Right.
Because he was sort of sprinkled in during the first half. I believe he played 7 snaps in the first half. Didn't play at all in the final 8.5 minutes of the second quarter. Yeah. So I would assume that their plan was probably to maybe get him an extra couple reps during the second half, but not use him in any sort of extensive capacity. But after Philip Dorsett got hurt on that touchdown catch, Nikhil Harry played every single offensive snap for the next 5 possessions, I believe. He only came out of the game on that final possession when the Patriots were just kind of going super heavy personnel and trying to run out the clock. And overall, there weren't really any standout moments from him. There was one notable one where I thought he could have had. You mentioned that Tom Brady was kind of showed a willingness to look to him in a situation where he might otherwise kind of shy away from him. There was one in the red zone where Nikhil Harry was running a kind of a shallow cross across the field, and it looked like he had a step or two on the defender. Tom Brady didn't even really look his way, and if he did, he wasn't comfortable throwing the ball into that spot, ended up throwing it out of bounds, and the Patriots settled for a field goal in that moment. So I'm sure it'll improve from Nikhil Harry overall for a guy who is making his first NFL appearance and who hasn't played a real football game in almost a year. I'd say it was a successful debut. Both Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels, when we talked to them earlier this week, they said, he had some good things. He had some things that were clear to the coaching staff that he needs to improve. But from watching it from an outsider's perspective, there weren't any moments where you could look and say, man, Nikhil Harry really messed up on this play or this play. And the fact that those are kind of absent from this tape is, I think, a good sign for a guy like this.
For sure. Getting over to the defensive side of the ball, the Patriots got off to sort of some early struggles. The first drive, the Eagles picked up a giant chunk on a defensive pass interference penalty by Jason McCourty. Then they had to settle for a field goal. Then the Eagles punted on their second drive, but they really worked down the field on their third drive, which I think had some Patriots fans a little bit worried that game against the Ravens in Week 9 wasn't just an aberration for the Patriots defense, but Patriots defense really cleaned up after that, didn't allow any more points. And I thought that a notable drive on defense was the Eagles' 3-minute drive at the end of the game. The game was sort of lagging at that point because there had just been punt after punt after punt. There was nothing going on offense.
10 consecutive punts, I believe.
I think that we were all thinking in the press box, sort of, this game's never going to end. And the Eagles got the ball with 4 minutes to go, and by the time that they had turned the ball over on downs, there was 58 seconds left. I thought the Patriots did a pretty good job on that drive of just keeping that clock rolling and running to ensure that they did win the game. And yes, the Eagles got down to the New England's 26-yard line and had a shot for a touchdown there at the end. But I just thought it was a good job of them to keep the Eagles on the field for that long to drain the clock while also not allowing any points.
Definitely, and that was the drive that ended in the incompletion to Nelson Aguilar in the end zone. I saw people calling that a Nelson Aguilar drop. Wouldn't really call it that. Maybe
I know hands, but J.C. Jackson really disrupted the play.
And it was sort of a Willie Mays kind of straight over the head sort of thing. I know people in Philly,
saw people say they misjudged the ball.
Probably,
which I think is
because he definitely misjudged one of the another pass into the end zone earlier in the game. I know people in Philly aren't particularly high on Nelson Aguilar this year. But overall, this was a very strong kind of response from the Patriots defense, both after the Ravens game and after that long touchdown drive that you mentioned early in the second quarter. 16 plays, 95 yards, took 9 minutes and 33 seconds off the clock. Very similar to those two drives that the Ravens were able to mount late in that Baltimore game 2 weeks ago. But after that drive, they allowed 19 yards on their next 18 defensive snaps, which really kind of smothered this Eagles offense, which, yes, was without their number one running back, Jordan Howard, was without their top two wide receivers in Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson. No Darren Sproles there. Lane Johnson went out of this game, which is a really big blow for this Eagles team. The Patriots didn't have any sacks before Lane Johnson came out of this game. They had 5 after Lane Johnson came out. It's a pretty big drop from him to Vaitai and Andre Dillard, the guys that they used to fill in. So not a full strength team that the Patriots were playing in this game, but the fact that they were able to kind of bounce back after a long sort of grinding, clock-killing, tiring drive like that. And I mean, the next Eagles drives after that, 3 plays, 2 plays, 5 plays, 3 plays, 5 plays, 3 plays, 5 plays, and then they were able to stage some longer ones, or one longer one right at the end of that game. This was overall a very strong performance by the Patriots defense, especially the Patriots defensive line. This was a really good Danny Shelton game, really good Lawrence Guy game. They teamed up for the only turnover in this game, which was a fumble on the second drive after that long touchdown drive. So, yeah, I think the Patriots defense can come away with this one feeling pretty good about themselves.
Yeah, for sure. It is a good point about all the players the Eagles had lost before the game and even during the game. But it was still a road win against a team that is certainly still in the hunt for that NFC East title this season.
One game back right now.
And they will be battling up against the Dallas Cowboys, who we will be talking about now because the Patriots are playing the Cowboys in Week 12. And in talking to Bill Belichick this morning, he was basically acting like the Dallas Cowboys are like the 1995 Dallas Cowboys. So expect to see, Michael Irvin, Deion Sanders, Troy Aikman, all those guys out there. I actually do think the Cowboys are pretty decent, especially on defense this season. They've got a lot of really talented players on the defensive side of the ball, so I think this is a really good test for the Patriots offense with Isaiah Wynn back on the field. We'll see what happens at that wide receiver situation with Sanu and Dorsett. I was told immediately after the game that Dorsett should be fine for this week.
He's back at practice today.
He was back at practice today.
Don't know if he was participating, though.
Sort of hard to gauge with head injuries, but the initial word was that he should be fine. But, this is a Cowboys team. Michael Bennett's playing really well as a sub rusher on that defense. Patriots traded him to the Cowboys before the trade deadline. They've got their talented linebackers there with Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith, and Sean Lee. They've got some good players in the secondary like Byron Jones. And, as Bill Belichick mentioned this morning, they are getting a lot of pressure after the quarterback up front, not only with Michael Bennett, but obviously they've got DeMarcus Lawrence and Robert Quinn on the edge there. Malik Collins has been providing some pressure up the middle at that defensive tackle position. So, it's not the best defense in the league. That's probably the Patriots or the 49ers, but it does have a lot of talented players. And it's pretty deep, especially when you're looking at those defensive line and linebacker positions.
Absolutely. I really like that linebacking trio. Leighton Vander Esch was one of the guys that I really liked coming out of the draft. What was it, last year? 2018? He's in his second season right now.
Boise State?
Yep, Boise State. Yeah, there's a lot of talent on this defense, a lot of talent on this entire Cowboys team. We didn't mention their offense at all, but their offense is first in DVOA, first in yards, fourth in points. Dak Prescott's having a very strong season. Ezekiel Elliott, obviously one of the better running backs in the NFL, and they've got a pretty strong receiving trio, one of the better receiving trios in the league, probably in Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and Randall Cobb. So this is a team that is going to test the Patriots. I think this could come down to the coaching matchup, though, because when you look at all this talent on this Cowboys team, and then you look at their record,
they should be way better.
And you look at the fact that they lost to the Jets like 3 weeks ago. This strikes me as a classic Bill Belichick against a team that maybe has more talent. I don't want to say they have more talent than the Patriots, but they are a very talented team. But Jason Garrett has been on the hot seat for like a decade now. I can't see it. I struggle to see a way that Jason Garrett can kind of navigate a close game situation against Bill Belichick in this game. Should be exciting. Should be a good game. I'm
for sure
interested to see running games on both sides because the Patriots haven't run the ball well this season. For a while they struggled to defend the run. Did a little bit better last week, but that was against Boston Scott for a lot of that game. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting matchup in this one. Really interesting to see how Isaiah Wynn plays against that strong pass rush you mentioned. A lot of good storylines coming into this one.
Yeah, I think that this is one of the tougher matchups for Stephon Gilmore this week is Amari Cooper. He's had some tough matchups this season, but Amari Cooper is one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. And the Cowboys have Michael Gallup as well, who is a very talented, a second-year player? Second-year player. But he also has the highest drop rate among wide receivers in the NFL. He's got 9 drops per PFF on 69 targets. He only has 42 catches. So that's a really high drop rate for a wide receiver. I'll be interested to see how the Patriots sort of handle him. It'll probably be some combination of, J.C. Jackson, Jason McCourty covering Gallup, but I think that might be a pretty good test for J.C. Jackson because J.C. Jackson has been one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL against the deep ball, and Michael Gallup's definitely got some big play potential there at wide receiver. I'm trying to look up his deep receiving stats so far this season. 4 catches, 140 yards, with a touchdown. So, I think that, he's a guy who's got some decent speed, and the Cowboys in general have some big play threats there as well with Amari Cooper. So it's sort of strength against strength, since the Patriots have done a really good job of limiting big plays. And Bill Belichick was mentioning this morning that the Cowboys are among the NFL leaders in big offensive plays.
Yeah, going to be 2 straight big weeks for Stephon Gilmore if, as we assume, he goes back to his normal strategy of shadowing the opponent's number 1 receiver, because he's got Amari Cooper this week, and then he has DeAndre Hopkins in Houston next week. So that's it's probably about as good of a back-to-back as you'll have this season.
Personally, I'm thinking the Patriots win this game relatively handily, and it does kind of go back to what you were saying about the coaching matchups, where it's Bill Belichick against Jason Garrett. And, I mean, this is a really talented Cowboys team, but what are they coming into this game? They're 6-5?
They're 6-4.
Yeah.
They're 0-3 against teams that are currently in that would make the postseason if the season ended today. They lost to the Saints, lost to the Saints, lost to the Packers, and lost to the Vikings, also lost to the Jets, as I mentioned earlier. And all of their wins have come against teams that rank pretty low down in your NFL power rankings, except for one win they have over the Eagles. But it's that. Other than that, it's like Redskins, Giants, Lions, and they barely beat the Lions with Jeff Driscoll last weekend. The Dolphins are in there, so yeah, this is a Cowboys team that you can definitely say is not playing up to its talent. It's certainly underachieving from the team you look at on paper and the results that they've been able to put up.
For sure. And obviously, we didn't talk about him too much, but Dak Prescott is going to be a significant challenge for that defense as well. He's on pace for, I think, over 5,000 yards so far this season.
5,100. Yeah.
And, he's had some games where he hasn't played quite as well as he has in other ones. The Saints limited him to 223 yards with an interception, no touchdowns. The Eagles limited him to 239 yards with a touchdown and an interception. But he's also had some monster games in there as well. He's coming off that game against the Lions where he had 444 yards with 3 touchdowns. He's had 400-yard games against the Giants and the Packers. So I don't expect those kind of stats this week against the Patriots, and I have him on a fantasy team, and I don't really know what to do in that situation. My other quarterback is Aaron Rodgers, who's going up against the 49ers this week. So not the easiest decision to make there between Dak Prescott against the Patriots and Aaron Rodgers against the 49ers, but I would say that I expect the Patriots to do pretty well despite all those impressive pieces on the Cowboys offense, at least against their passing game, because there's even against the Ravens, even against the Eagles, the Patriots pass defense really has not sputtered at all this season in a single game.
Yeah, looking at depending on what metric you look at, you can make the case that Stephon Gilmore, Jonathan Jones, and J.C. Jackson are all having some of the best seasons of any cornerbacks in the NFL this year. I believe
Jason McCourty too.
Jason McCourty too.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's been, I would say, maybe a half step below those other 3, but just because he has had a few moments like the 49-yard pass interference he had the other day. Overall, this is the best secondary in football, which is the primary reason why teams have had so much difficulty passing on this Patriots team. Obviously, the pass rush has been very strong as well, which plays into that as well. Going back to Dak Prescott for just a second, it was interesting to hear the way Bill Belichick talked about Dak Prescott this morning, because Bill Belichick always hypes up opponents. Every single team the Patriots play, he is sort of over the top with his praise of the opposing team. I remember a couple of years ago when they played the Dolphins, when they had Matt Moore and Jay Cutler, and he said that they were it was like 2 fantastic passers or something like that, or 2 very dangerous guys. But his praise for Dak Prescott this morning was notable even for him, saying that he called him super impressive. He said it's hard seeing anybody playing much better than him. I said he's a great quarterback. Really went on and on about Dak Prescott.
Make all the throws.
Yeah, make all the throws, all of the cliches. Right. But it's clear that Bill Belichick does kind of hold Dak Prescott in pretty high regard, which raises the kind of interesting question that some of us were talking about in the media workroom a little while ago. The Patriots worked out Dak Prescott, or I don't know if they worked out, but they did work on Dak Prescott before the 2016 draft, ended up picking Jacoby Brissett in the third round. Dak Prescott went about 45 picks later to the Cowboys at the end of the fourth round, ended up winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, and has been the Cowboys' starting quarterback ever since. Just an interesting what if the Patriots had decided that rather than picking Brissett, which was still a pretty quality pick. I mean, Jacoby Brissett is a starting quarterback in the NFL right now, but if they had gone with Dak Prescott instead of Jacoby Brissett, how things might have been different. I personally don't think they would have been any different at all to see how this whole thing played out. But it is always interesting when you see these two guys drafted kind of so close to each other.
Yeah, I also feel like it might have gone exactly the same way, where maybe even they would have traded Dak Prescott to the Colts instead of Jacoby Brissett. I was saying earlier, there was a time when Prescott had a lot more hype before he entered the draft, and there was sort of a legal issue or something, and he dropped to the fourth round or the third or fourth round, whatever it was. But there was a time when he was playing at Mississippi State where I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, whatever, on Twitter or something like that, but I feel like there was a time when he was viewed as a potential first-round pick during whatever it was, his junior or senior season at Mississippi State. Then things sort of dropped off and tempered a little bit. But, I mean, he was a really good player as a junior at Mississippi State, had an even better season as a senior. But at some point, as a junior, he threw for 27 yards, had almost 3,500 yards passing. Then he had another 986 yards rushing with 14 touchdowns. So, I mean, that's against SEC defenses. It really shouldn't be that big of a surprise that he is as good as he is with the Dallas Cowboys, but he did drop to that fourth round. And I think even before the draft, I would have to check rankings and all that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had actually been rated higher than Jacoby Brissett while both players were entering that draft, because I think that Brissett was viewed more as kind of a fifth or sixth round pick that the Patriots might have overdrafted a little bit there in the third round. But I mean, considering the players that were taken before Brissett and before Dak Prescott in this draft, you're talking about Paxton Lynch, Cody Kessler, Connor Cook,
I think it was
Christian Hackenberg.
Yeah, Kessler and Cook were both, I think, in between Brissett and Prescott. But yeah, there are a lot of highly mediocre quarterbacks that were drafted in 2016.
Yeah, for sure. And Prescott and Brissett are the best of the bunch. So if the Patriots didn't take the best one, at least they took the second best one in that class. But no, I don't know if there would have been enough time for Dak Prescott to show that he could be the successor to Tom Brady, because the Patriots really only gave Jacoby Brissett 1 year and a summer to prove that he could do that before they traded him away. So, yeah, it's an interesting what if, but I'm not sure if the results would have really been any different with it.
Yeah, and then part of the reason that Dak was able to come in and be so successful so early was because Tony Romo got hurt that first summer. He came in and played so well that basically made Romo kind of expendable, and then has really locked down that spot ever since. And as you mentioned, I don't think he would have had enough time in the game and a half the 2 games where Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt. That I don't think that would have been quite enough time to solidify that spot. But
yeah, I mean,
interesting question.
It would have been that plus preseason and training camp and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It is certainly an interesting question, but as I said, I'm just not sure what really would have changed with it. Let's play America's favorite game real quick before we get out of here. Let's quickly look at the Cowboys. I'm just going to talk really slow until I can get to the Cowboys roster. As usual, we use Wikipedia with this. All right, let's look at this real quick. Do you know where Donovan Wilson went to school? Safety/free safety on the Cowboys' 53-man roster.
I do not.
I am going to guess he went to Washington State.
I'm going to guess he went to Donovan Wilson. He went to Michigan State.
Donovan Wilson went to Texas A&M. Do you know where Malik Collins went to school?
I do not.
He went to Nebraska, I believe. He went to Nebraska.
All right.
Is there anyone on here that you know that I probably don't?
Let's see. You know Byron Jones?
Byron Jones went to UConn.
Yes, he did.
Do you know where Joe Looney went to school?
You go to USC?
I think he went to Purdue.
Purdue.
Wake Forest. Same thing.
Same college. Purdue and Wake Forest are basically the same.
They're the exact same college, yeah. Throw like Vanderbilt in there, and all three of those are basically the exact same thing. All right, well, let's get out of here. Keep it on NESN.com for all of your Patriots coverage. Follow me on Twitter at Doug Hyde. Follow Zach on Twitter at ZachCoxNESN. And tune in to the pregame chat on Sunday around 2 o'clock. We'll be on there with Matt Chatham previewing the game against the Dallas Cowboys.